On Monday morning, November 18, 2019, Daniel Mercer is found dead in Maple Creek, Ohio. He is lying on the concrete floor of the detached garage behind his house. Daniel is 46 years old. He works as a maintenance technician at a local packaging plant and is known in the neighborhood as someone who repairs almost everything himself. His garage fits that image. It is not a clean hobby room, but a working space with a workbench, metal cabinets, paint cans, extension cords, boxes, a bench vise, and a tool board on the wall. His wife, Laura Mercer, says she finds him shortly after 7 in the morning. Daniel is lying near the workbench and a low metal cabinet. He has a head injury. The side door of the garage is closed. Nothing appears to be missing, and there are no signs of a break-in inside the house. According to the file, Daniel fell while working in his garage. The explanation fits the room: concrete, metal, tools, and little space to move. Within days, his death is treated as a tragic accident. For most people in Maple Creek, that is enough. For Daniel's brother, Ethan Mercer, it is harder to accept. After the funeral, Ethan tries to accept the explanation. Daniel often worked alone. He did small repairs at odd hours and knew his garage better than anyone. A fall in that kind of space does not sound impossible. Still, one point keeps bothering him. Daniel was careful. He could work in a messy space, but he was not careless. He knew where his tools were, how little room there was between the workbench and the cabinets, and which corners were dangerous. Ethan does not immediately think of a planned attack. He asks a simpler question: what if Daniel did not fall on his own? What if someone argued with him, pushed him, or made him lose his balance? He has no proof, only doubt. So he contacts Mara Keene, a former detective who now works as a private investigator. Mara does not promise him an answer. She only says that an accident has to fit more than the medical file. It has to fit the room, the timeline, and Daniel's habits. Together, they start again with the final evening. Who could have seen Daniel? Who had a conflict with him? And who knew the garage well enough to enter it without drawing attention? The first concrete direction is Ray Collins, a neighbor farther down the street. Ray and Daniel had been having problems for months. It started with noise and borrowed tools, but grew into arguments about a property line and work near the back of Daniel's garage. Ray had been on the property before. He knew the garage, and one neighbor remembers seeing him angry at Daniel's door shortly before Daniel died. For Ethan, Ray fits the possibility he has in mind. No complicated plan, no unknown intruder, just a neighbor, an old argument, a confrontation in or near the garage, and a fall that goes wrong. Mara passes that lead to the police. The old file is reviewed. Ray's timeline is checked quickly. His phone data places him on the other side of Maple Creek that evening. A receipt and surveillance footage from a gas station support his account. Nothing in the garage points to him. Ray had a conflict with Daniel, that is clear, but there is no evidence that he was at the Mercer house that night. When Ray is excluded, Ethan returns to the garage itself. Months after Daniel's death, Laura decides to sell the house. That does not seem strange to anyone. The house is too large, the garage remains a difficult place, and she says she does not want to be reminded every day of what happened there. New photos are taken for the sale: the kitchen, the living room, the garden, and the garage. Ethan later sees those photos and places them next to older images Daniel took himself years earlier when he reorganized his workspace. At first, the differences seem small. The same workbench, the same metal cabinets, the same tool board on the wall, but something on the right side of the board catches his attention. That is where the hammers hang. In Daniel's old photos, they hang in a fixed order. Not perfectly neat, but consistent. In the new photo, one hammer is different, not missing, not hidden, back on the board, but slightly lower, slightly turned, not quite in its old position. Mara does not call it proof, but she agrees that the toolboard should become part of the file. The police return to the garage with a narrower question. This time, they do not treat the room as the site of a fall. They look at the tools themselves, one by one. The hammer Ethan noticed looks ordinary from the outside. It is not new, it is not missing, it is not hidden behind a cabinet or thrown away. It hangs among the other tools, but targeted testing finds small traces. The visible parts are clean, but inside minor damage near the joint between the handle and the head, there are traces that were not fully removed. Forensic testing links them to Daniel. The original injury description is then reviewed. Daniel's head injury is compared with the floor, the workbench, the metal cabinet, and the hammer. The injury fits less well with a normal fall. The shape and location of the impact fit better with a compact hard object. From that point, the hammer is investigated as a possible weapon. The next question is who could use it, clean it, and put it back without his presence in the garage seeming unusual. That question brings Mark Ellison into focus. Mark is not a stranger to the Mercers. He has done small jobs around the house before. A broken fence, a leaking drain, a few shelves in the garage. To neighbors, he is a useful man who sometimes comes onto the property. But phone records show that his contact with Laura went beyond practical arrangements. Messages were deleted but not completely gone. Recovered data shows that Laura and Mark had been having a sexual affair for months. On Sunday evening, November 17th, Mark is at the house again. Daniel is normally working a late shift and is not expected home until later. Laura lets Mark in through the back of the house so he does not have to come in from the street side. Shortly after 9, Daniel comes home unexpectedly. He parks his car in the driveway and goes to the garage. There, he finds Laura and Mark having sex. According to the reconstruction, the confrontation begins immediately. Daniel understands that Mark is not there as a handyman, but as Laura's lover. What exactly is said cannot later be established. But prosecutors argue that Mark takes a hammer from the tool board and strikes Daniel hard on the head. Daniel falls onto the concrete floor and is fatally injured. After that, Mark and Laura do not call for help. They try to make Daniel's death look like an accident. The hammer is cleaned and placed back on the board. Daniel is positioned near the workbench and the metal cabinet, so the scene looks like a fall during repair work. Laura later gives a statement that supports that version. Daniel had been alone in the garage, as he often was. Mark is not mentioned. For months, that explanation holds. The sale photos eventually bring police back to the tool board. In 2021, Mark Ellison is convicted for the fatal attack on Daniel Mercer. The court finds that the blow itself is not the only serious factor. It also weighs what happens afterwards. No call for help, the cleaning of the tool, the rearranged scene, and allowing Daniel's death to be treated as an accident. Laura Mercer is not convicted as the person who used the hammer. Her role is in the aftermath. She is convicted for concealing the truth, misleading the investigation, and supporting the accident explanation. According to the court, her behavior was not only panic. She maintained that Daniel had been alone in the garage. She kept the room closed for months, saying she could not face it. And she stayed silent about Mark, even though his presence would have changed the official version. Ray Collins is fully excluded. He had argued with Daniel, but he did not have the timing, the traces, or the access needed to explain what happened in the garage. For Ethan, the hardest part is that it took months before the garage was examined again. The case is not solved by a confession or by a witness who saw everything. It is solved through photographs, dust, a reviewed injury report, and a hammer that was almost back in its usual place.